Before we begin this video, I want to say something most motivational speakers will never tell you. Change is not beautiful. Change is not inspirational. Change is not some cinematic moment where music starts playing and everything suddenly makes sense. Real change is messy. Real change is painful. Real change feels like you're tearing pieces of yourself apart just so something better can grow in its place. And that's what part three of this series is about. Welcome back to Overcoming with Ray Latour. In part one, we talked about something difficult to admit. How I developed narcissistic tendencies as a way to cope with pain. Not because I thought I was better than people, but because my mind needed to protect itself from feeling powerless. In part two, we talked about the mirror. The moment when you finally stop lying to yourself and start seeing the truth about who you've become. But today, we're talking about what happens after the mirror. Because once you see the truth, you can't go you can't go back to pretending. And here's the hard part. Awareness doesn't automatically create change. You can know exactly what's wrong with you and still stay the same. That's the trap. Understanding your problems doesn't fix them. Doing the work does. For me, the work started with something simple but terrifying: accountability. No more blaming my past for everything. No more blaming people who hurt. No more pretending my coping mechanisms were harmless. I had to start asking a brutal question. What parts of my life are the results of my own choices? That question hit me like a brick, man. Hit me right here. Because that moment, you asked it, you ask it honestly, you realize you can't hide anymore. One of the hardest things about confronting narcissistic, narcissistic tendencies is realizing how subtle they can be. They don't always look like arrogance. Sometimes they look like defensiveness. Sometimes they look like shutting people out. Sometimes they look like believing nobody understands you anyway. So why bother letting them try? That mindset feels safe, but it also feels lonely. Depression makes this even more complicated because when your mind is already attacking you every day, you don't want to hear more criticism about yourself. You want relief. You want peace. But growth doesn't happen in comfort. It happens in confrontation. And confrontation begins with yourself. There were moments in my life where I had to sit with the uncomfortable truth that some of the walls I built weren't protecting me anymore, that they were isolating. I had to become so focused on protecting my mind from pain that I accidentally disconnected from the people who actually cared about me. And that realization hurts, man, because you start wondering how different things might have been if you had to if you had faced those issues sooner. But here's the important part. Regret doesn't have to define your future. Regret can also become your teacher. Because when you truly understand your mistakes, you gain the power to change your direction. Change, however, it comes at a cost. You can become a better version of yourself while holding on to the habits that kept you stuck. Some mindsets have to die. Some of some excuses have to disappear. Some defense mechanisms have to be dismantled. And that process feels like tearing down your entire identity. But here's the truth that I discovered. The person you were doesn't have to be the person you stay. Growth means evolution. Growth means learning. Growth means becoming someone wiser than the version of yourself that came before. And sometimes growth means admitting that the person you used to be needed to change. For me, that journey didn't just involve reflection. It involved faith, prayer, listening to the Bible, finding the guidance when my mind felt like a battlefield. Because when you're fighting battles inside your head, you need something stronger than your own thoughts to anchor you. And faith became part of that anchor for me. But the progress isn't finished. Change isn't a destination. It's a daily decision. A decision to keep growing. A decision to stay humble. A decision to keep fighting the parts of yourself that want to fall into old patterns. In part four, we're going to talk about the most intense part of my journey. The moment when I realized something powerful. The version of myself that was built out of pain. The version of myself that hid behind ego and defensive mechanisms. That man couldn't survive anymore. He had to go. This is Overcoming through Ray Latour, where we remind each other every day to live, laugh, learn, and stay positive. And if nobody has ever told you today, I believe in you. And together, we keep fighting. I love you guys. Thank you.